Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Doing better?
Yes, much better.
That's
Much,
good. Baruch
much
Hashem. Thank God.
compared to the weekend.
It's-
Waiting on Bruria, she's not here yet.
Okay.
Just always first. Let me see. Oh,
Okay, so we're going to start with the Bet Yosef because we did the tour yesterday. So it goes like this. It says, "B'inyan hafsaka shemafsikin bebrachot." Right? Regarding the that we interrupt in the Shema in the blessings there to say those extra things. So says the Bet Yosef regarding that, הפיוטים שהיו נוהגים לומר באמצע הברכות, קריאת שמע, היו קוראים אותם קרובץ. So he says these songs that they used to do, they were calling them krovets over there in the Kriyat Shema. And ושמעתי כי הוא ראשי תיבות. So this krovets is like abbreviation. For what? Kol Rina v'Yeshua be'olei tzadikim. Okay, that's the abbreviation. Katav Rabbeinu. So says Rabbeinu, שראוי היה שלא להפסיק באותם ביוטים. Right, so the Torah says it's better not to do that, not to say those things. בברכות קריאת שמע, בברכות קריאת שמע. ותשובת הרמה שכתב רבנו מבוארת. He said the tshuva of the Rama that Rabbeinu, the Torah, brought, he says it's very clear. Okay, so then he goes on. מה שכתב, וכן כתב הרמב"ם, not what he wrote, he brought the name of the Rambam, he brought in the name of the Rambam there, some things, he said, ברכות אלו עם השאר, הברכות, אין אדם רשאי לפחות מהם, או להוסיף עליהם. So the Rambam said, you're not allowed to add things there, you're not allowed to subtract things there. פרק א', where is that? רמב"ם, פרק א', בהלכות קריאת שמע, first פרק of קריאת שמע, ומה שכתב, אמנם נוהגים בכל המקומות לומר בהם קרובץ, and then the Rambam says, but you know what? The custom is to say krovets. That's the way it is. So he says, Zeu bizmano. So that was in their time, you know? About bizman hazeh en nohagim ken. So Maran says, in our times we don't do it, right? Interesting. So how do I interpret that? That in Spain, you know, in the Sephardi countries, they weren't doing it at that time. Because the Ashkenazim, as I said, you know, they do add some things there. Okay, so it goes on to say, so he says also, the former rabbis from the old days, you know, they already had this custom a long time ago. They decreed that, right? Or they enacted it. Rabbi Elazar Kalir v'chaverav, right? So, as we said, right, he mentions this rabbi, Rabbi Elazar Kalir. He's supposed to be the source for these prayers, for these praises, whatever you want to call them. It also says in the Rosh, and the end perek Ein Din, ve'Rashba b'tshuva. So it's brought down in the Rishonim, this concept here. ומש כתב שרבנו תם דחק לפרש ההוא במקום שאמרו לקצר, and he says that which he said that Rabbeinu Tam went out of his way to try to explain, to justify this custom, as we said, right, to justify. So it says brought down, it's explained over there in the words of Rabbeinu Yonah, Besop per kama de brachot, in the end of the first perek of brachot. And then he goes on, ומש כתב מכל מקום, טוב ויפה הדבר לבטלה, but then in the end, right, the Torah said, yeah, okay, you know, all is well and said, but he says it's better to nullify this stuff, you know, and we don't really want it in there. That means if shar, whoever is possible to nullify it, should nullify it. Because it causes people to get distracted and speak, right, the mundane words. Devarim berim hem, so he says it's very clear. It says Bet Yosef. It's very clear this is a problem here. Okay, so it goes on. Mash katav gamken Rabbeinu Tam piresh lekei minhag, and that which he said that Rabbeinu Tam went out of his way to explain the custom. Lo yashar b'nei Adoni avoy rosh, but he says, but my father the Rosh doesn't agree with it. Lo matzati le'arosh, so he says I really didn't find in the Rosh Katavkin that he wrote like that. So he says it's possible that he verbally told him this, right? It's possible. It's not really written anywhere in the Rosh. Interesting. Okay, that's the end of the chapter. Very good. So, right, that's basically the idea. So, as we said right yesterday, to reiterate, what's the bottom line? The bottom line is, you know, that there are places that have this custom, but the Torah feels better to nullify it if it's possible. Okay, so Bet Yosef seems to agree with that, pretty much. So they're pretty much in agreement with that when it comes to that. So let's see the Shulchan Aruch here. Second. So it says Shulchan Aruch like this. Yesh mekomot shemafsikim bebrakot Kriyat Shema. There are places that, as we said, right, they in the middle of the Kriyat Shema and the blessings, they do some extra stuff there, lomar piutim, to say praises of God, some kind of songs, whatever, right? So it says, right, the Bet Yosef, it's better to refrain from this, right, because it's an interruption in the Kriyat Shema. Not really a good idea. So then brings the Ramah, some say there's no prohibition regarding this. So that's the custom, right? So in other words, you see that the Ashkenazim had this custom, you know, they still have it today until this day. But he says if you're lenient that you don't say them, you didn't lose anything, right? In other words, okay, no big deal, you know, either way, you're good. He says, and therefore, in any case, he says, but he says, a person who studies, you know, like silently without saying anything, שרואה בספר ומהרהר, and he's just looking in the book, and reading, learning. Let be'isura. There's no prohibition, he says. In other words, if you want to just like pick up a book and start reading something, some book, some Torah book, you can do that while they're doing this. Why? Because thinking is not like saying. Because you're not allowed to say divrei Torah there in that place. But he says, from this he may come, yavo ledaber. He may also come to speak also as well. They have sex. He's going to come to do interruption there. Adkan. He says, I'm sorry. And he says, therefore, so he says, therefore, don't try to separate from the community. Place where they're accustomed to say it. So you should say it with them. Look up above, it says Siman Tzadik. Okay, whatever. Anyway, right, the point is like this, right? That the Ramah has a different opinion here a little bit. So he says, right, that if they are accustomed to say it, the place where you go, you should better to say it with them, than to just learn something at that time, because you may come to speak mundane words. But the truth is that Maran doesn't really allow that. He says it's really interruption. So depends on your custom, As we said, the Sfarim, nobody does this. The Ashkenazim, they do it. So, depends on if you're Sfari or Ashkenazi, basically. Okay, very good. That's the idea. So that's the way it goes. This halakha. That's why, when you buy books today, like, which are made by Ashkenazi authors, you know what I mean? A lot of them don't really include the Sephardi, halachot. They don't. That's why I tell you, sometimes be careful with that, because they just don't include it. In general, these Ashkenazi authors today, they don't include the Sephardi side. They don't bring it. Like we don't exist, like we're, might as well just, erase the picture, and put a blank there. We don't exist. So yeah, so that's why it's better to now, Baruch Hashem, we have books. So better to buy from Sephardi authors that are bringing Sephardi halachot. Better to buy things like this. Otherwise, you always have to ask your rabbi. Rabbi, what about this in this book? Is this correct? Because you don't know. You may be only for Ashkenazim. You know what I mean? Every second halakha, maybe something which is not for Sfaradim. You never know, right? So it's gonna be. That's why it's better to buy books that are for Sfaradim. For Sfaradim like that. For Ashkenazim, they have Baruch Hashem. They have enough books. They have a lot of books, so they buy their own. Okay, very good. So let's go to the next siman.
I do think that it's good to know they're lost too. So whenever we have a meeting with them, we know their customs and don't get surprised by their customs.
Right, but the truth is that it's good to know theirs, but first you should know yours. First thing is you got to know your own, and then once you know your own, then you can learn somebody else's. But the problem is when you learn somebody else's first, you think that this is for you. This is the problem. You know what I mean?
And you get confused. Yeah.
You get confused. Yeah. So sometimes you have to relearn everything. Like there's a thing like that where a person has to redo everything. So that's in order to avoid that problem, better to buy a book which is more for your community. Okay, so let's see next one. So now we're going to 69. Okay. So it says here in the Torah, Tanam beperek hakoreh Megillah, right? It says over there in this perek, which is in Masechet Megillah, Omed en porsin al Shema. I'm sorry, en porsin al Shema, bepachot me'asara. So it says there, right, that there's something called being pores on the Shema. So this custom will explain, right, what they did. But first we understand one thing, right, that you can't do it without a minyan. So therefore it says, right, that you have to have 10 people. If you don't have 10 people, you cannot be pores on the Shema. So now he explains, right, what this is. By the way, today we don't do it really. It's not really at all done by anybody. We have different things that we do today, different ways. But anyway, what he says is like this, right? That Perush, what's the explanation? Otam sheba'u lebet knesset achar shekaru b'tzibur, Shema. So those people who came to the shul, they came late. So what does that mean? They already read the Shema, these people, in the shul. Omer Kaddish Baruch Hu. So what does he do in order to catch up with them? Right? What he says Kaddish, he says Baruch Hu, and they're all answering, on him. They're answering. Ubracha Rishona Yotzer Or. Then he does the first blessing, Yotzer Or, below Yotzer, not more than that. Porsin. So what does it mean? The word porsin? Lashon chaticha. Like you make a slice out of it. You slice it. Kemo prusa. She'en omrim ela ktsat mimena. So what does that mean? Why does it say you're slicing it? Because you're only doing a part of it, only the first blessing. So there are those who add after they finish the first blessing. Then they say also the first part of the Amidah, right? The first blessing, second blessing. And then he does the kedusha. The atakadosh, and then atakadosh. Ve'kamar shelo yasu zeh. So it's telling you this halacha that they shouldn't do all these things that we just mentioned. Pachot ve'pachot be'asara. If you have less than 10 people. Ve'aya omer Rabbeinu Tam. So Rabbeinu Tam used to say, "Shetzarich sheyu shiv'ah." We need 7. He says, "Shelo sham'u kaddish u'baruch hu." That didn't hear kaddish u'baruch hu. If you want to do this, ve'az yomar, and then you can say, "V'afa pi she'acharim sham'u." And even though the other ones already heard it, the Talmidei Rashi katvu, but the Talmidim of Rashi said, Bishmo, in his name, Shafiru bishvil echad, that even for one person, Shelo Shama Kaddish, they didn't hear Kaddish Baruch Hu Porsin et Shema, we can still do Prisav Shema, even for one person. That's how we do it, by the way, today. We do it even for one person. Vafilu oto shekvar Shama, even that person that already heard it, Yachol hachazor lifros, he can go and do it again. Bishvil ha'echad shelo shama, for somebody who didn't hear yet. And this is what it says in Nami b'Masechet Sofrim, and this tractate Sofrim in the Talmud. B'makom sheyesh tet or yud, the place where there's 9 or 10 people, shesham'u kaddish u'baruch hu. They already heard kaddish u'baruch hu. Be'amad echad, and one gets up. Shelo shama, he didn't hear that yet, right? Ben elu shesham'u, ben be'amar kaddish u'baruch hu. He said kaddish u'baruch hu. Ve'anu elu acharav, and they answered after him. Yatzai yedei chovato, he fulfills the obligation. Ulzeh eskim Adonai Avi Rosh Zal, and that's how the Rosh agrees. He agrees to that. So what does that mean? The Rosh doesn't agree with Rabbeinu Tam. Then you need to have like 6 or 7 people that didn't hear. Even if one person didn't hear, you can still do it. Okay, good. So let's see the Bet Yosef. Says Bet Yosef. He brings the source for this. Tanan beperek hakoreh Megillah. V'chen piresh Rashi. So he says, also comes out from Rashi and Tosfot. Ve'arosh and Arosh v'dvirehem stumim k'tzat. So he says their words are a little bit unclear, undefined. Ve'aran kitavam be'mevuarim. But the Ran, he says, wrote it very clearly. Yefeh. Mevuarim yefeh. Well explained. V'zeh leshano. This is what he says. And prosin al Shema. So he says, right, that we don't do the Prisav Shema, whatever we just mentioned here. Rashi explains, Kegon shayu kan asara bani adam. You have here 10 people. Shit palelu kol echad. They already prayed, each one, by themselves. By themselves. Oh. Be'achid, singly. V'lo sham'u lo kaddish v'lo kedusha. They didn't hear kaddish kedusha. Hare echad mehen omed mitpalel. So one of them gets up and prays. Kaddish Baruch Hu. He says kaddish Baruch Hu. Matchil b'yotzer, and he starts yotzer. Ad kan hashana. That's the end of the Ran. U'divrei omrim she'en yachid omer kedusha. So this is according to the opinion that says the individual cannot say kedusha. Should be yotzer, which is in yotzer. Hayu omrim birkat yotzer mipnei kedushat rabashin. So then that's why they were doing the blessing of yotzer. Why? Because of the kedusha which is there. Shenam rashayim lomra be'achid. Because they're not allowed to do it individually. But according to the opinion that says the kedusha shall be yotzer yachid omer ota. You can say this kedusha even an individual. Tzarich lomar shelo hayu prosim al Shema. So you have to say, right, that they were not doing this prosim al Shema, like we defined. Ela, mipnei shehem tzrichim lomar, except that what they need to do kaddish and Baruch Hu. That's why. That's what they needed it for. V'chevan she'ashliach tzibur omer Baruch Hu. So once the shliach tzibur says Baruch Hu, al kol panim tzrichim levarech shum bracha. So they have to do some blessing. They have to answer. Sheim loken, because if not so, hayu nir'in kelu hem kofrin, because it seems like they're denying chas v'shalom. Sheomer lahem levarech, he tells them to bless. V'enam mechapetzim, and they don't want. Lachen omrim bracha rishona shel brachot kriyat shema. So therefore they do the first blessing of kriyat shema. Lachen katav Rabbeinu Agadol Maria. That's what it says in this rabbi. Katav Aran, shegam, that the Ran also writes, he says that also according to the Divrei Mfarshim, according to the ones who explain, then porsim hainu, that we don't do pores. Hainu Omar means to say the en matchilin bebrachot kriyat shema. That means they want to say that we don't do the blessings of kriyat shema. Sheyivarech ha'echad, that one should bless, v'atzu b'birchato, and they should fulfill their obligation by way of him. Ela be'asara, only if you have telling people. Mipnei davar kedusha shebehen, because of kedusha which is in there. Dainu b'safa brura, like this kedusha that we have there. Af b'brachot, so he says, also when it comes to blessings, kriyat shema, the arvit, in the evening, and prosim, we also don't do it there as well. If you don't have 10 people, only if you have a minyan. And even though there's no kedusha there, the law plug rabbanan, because the rabbis didn't make a differentiation, but chanatayu in their decrees. And this rabbi, right, Katav, he writes perush acher. He writes a different perush there, different explanation. B'shem Ram, name of the Ram, Shapa Pi Shamru. That even though they said she'am shebesadot, that the people in the fields, the anise, that are not able to show up there, they can't come to shul. They don't have time. So what happens is that shliach tzibur fulfills their obligation, even for prayers. Nevertheless, he says, Mikriyat Shema enam miftarim, but they're not absolved from Kriyat Shema. Ela be'amira rather from saying uve'aniyat amen, answering amen, and no poter. It doesn't absolve you. Ela be'asara, only with 10 people. Ulefichach, says therefore, and porsin al shema k'der liftor tashomim. Therefore, we don't do this pores al shema in order to absolve the ones who are listening. Be'aniyat amen, saying amen. Ela be'asara, with 10 people only. Shem loken, if not so, en aniyat amen klum, because then otherwise answering amen doesn't mean nothing. Umash katav, and that which he said, Rabbeinu said, the Torah. Some also, right after they do the first blessing, they also add Lomar Avot Gvurot. They say also the Amidah a little bit, right? The first two blessings, then the third blessing with Kedusha. Matnitin Achi Ita. So it says in the Mishnah like this: En Porsin Al Shema. We don't do Porsin Shema. Then Ovrin Lifnei Teva, and also we don't go to pray for the community, pachot me'asara, when we don't have 10 people. But Tchila Piresh, the beginning explains, and porsin al shema, that we don't do presab shema. Be'ashta mefaresh, here explains, and overim lifnei teva, that we don't appoint a chazan to go and pray for the community. That means that they're saying also the kedusha, avot and gevurot. Ve'ata kadosh, and also kadosh. Besamuch, echtob, it says nearby we're going to write, im yecholim le'afsik, if they're able to stop, sham, there, or im tzechim ligmor tefillah, or do they need to finish the tefillah altogether? Okay, very good. So then it goes on. Rabbeinu Tam used to say, that you need 7 people who didn't hear. They didn't hear Kaddish and Baruch Hu. Otherwise, you can't do this, he says. That's what it says in Tosfot there, Be'arosh, Be'aran, all these poskim. So he says, the reason is because it's written in Masechet Sofrim, Perek Yud, it says over there, the rabbis in the west, right, which is Eretz Israel, Omrim B'Shiv'ah, they say with 7 people, Natanim Tam, they give a reason for this, for their words. As it says in the Shoftim, Bifroa Peraot B'Yisrael, B'Itnadeb Am Baruch Hu Adonai. Dika Sheva Tevot. So there's like 7 words in this verse. So you see from there, you need 7 people who didn't hear it. Some say even 6 is enough. Mishum Devarav, the Baruch Hu Shisha, who? V'Sefer HaYashar. So he says, because, the Baruch Hu is Shishi, not Shisha, It's Shishi, it's the 6th one. It's the 6th word in that verse. V'Sefer HaYashar, but in this book, Katav Agada B'Chamisha, he wrote some kind of a, Agada, which is like a midrash, with 5, Mishum Deleka Ela Chamesh, with 5, because there's only 5, there's only 5 words, Ad Baruch Hu until Baruch Hu. Katvu Tosfot, says Tosfot, furthermore, it seems to me, says, Afilu B'Shtosha Shelo Shamu, even with 3 people didn't hear these things. And this is what it means to say, the Kara, the verse, before Peraot B'Yisrael, right, when you have sins that are being done in Israel, what does that mean? They didn't do what they're responsible to do, right? So then the people should bless Hashem. There's only 3 words, ad beit nadev, until the word itnadev. So therefore, he says even 3 people is enough. Ad kanashanu. So there's several opinions over here, right? Rabbeinu Tam says you need 7. According to this, Tosfot, you need 3. But as we said, right, there's also opinion that 1 is enough. We mentioned that already. So here it brings the Rambam. The Rambam Kitab Perket Minchot Tefillah says Rambam in laws of Tefillah, the Ketzadu Tefillah Tatzibu. How do you do so the question is like this, right? What's considered to be praying with a minyan? How do you do it? Say, what's the procedure? That's what he's defining over here. This is a famous Rambam, by the way, this one. So the way it goes is like this. One is praying, the Chazan, he's praying. The other ones are listening to him. So we can't do that, he says, with less than 10 people. Dolim, big people. And also free people. And Shliach Tzibur, the Chazan, also counts as one of them. So even if some of them were some of them already prayed. They already fulfilled their obligation of prayers. So we still can complete, right, the minyan for 10. So the Rambam says you need a majority of 10 people that didn't pray, which is 6, right? And also we don't say Kedusha, he says, and also one shouldn't be blessing Shema, the other one's listening, and answering Acharab, Amen, answering Amen. Only with 10 people this kind of thing can take place. This is what we call Pores al Shema. That's the end of it. So according to Rambam, we need 6 people, right? So again, you see, right, that there's several opinions going on here. So what does that mean? We need 6 people who didn't pray yet. So it goes on. Mashkatav Rabbeinu Tamidei Rashi. That which it says regarding Tamidei Rashi. He says, Katvu Bishmo, they wrote in his name, Shafiru Bishvil Echad, even for one person, right? So Rashi holds, even one you can do this for. Gam Ze Katvu Tosfot. It's also written in Tosfot, Be'arosh Ran, and it's brought down there. Be'arosh Katav, and the Rosh writes, Ve'achakach, afterwards, Ve'od Me'masechet Sofrim, also it says Masechet Sofrim, Katuv B'makom Sheyesh Tish'a, it says there that in a place where you have 9 people, or 10, or 10, Shamu, they already heard it. Ben Baruch Hu, Ben Kaddish, whether it's Baruch Hu or Kaddish. Ulachat Tfilah, and after the prayers, Amad Echad Mehem, one of them gets up. Shelo Shamad, he didn't hear it. Ben Elu, Ve'amar Baruch Hu, and he says Baruch Hu, Kaddish or Kaddish. Ve'anu Alav Acharav, and they answered him. Yatzai Dechovato, he fulfills obligation. So we're doing him a favor, basically, right? By doing this for him, in order that he should fulfill his obligation because he came late. The Ri Omer, so says the Ri, Shalom Atzar Rabbeinu Tam Lifros Al Shema. Rabbeinu Tam didn't want to do the Prisa of Shema. Kivan Sheshamu Kulam Kaddish. Why? Since all of them already heard Kaddish or Baruch Hu, Chutz Mimenu, except him. Afilu Hu Atzmo Lo Ratzah Lomar Baruch Hu. Even he himself didn't want to say Baruch Hu. The Shema Lishna the Masechet Sofrim. So he says perhaps the language which says Masechet Sofrim Lo Mashma Ela Diavad. It only implies like B'diavad, which is after the fact. But Lechatchila, preferably you shouldn't do this way. Ela So he says, but it doesn't seem right to me to say that. To make a differentiation like this. Ben Lechatchila, Ben Diavad. Whether it's Lechatchila and Diavad. So he says that thing which we said regarding the rabbis in the West, we're talking about Israeli rabbis. They're arguing on the first Tana, the Sabre de Lechatchila Omrim, and they hold that Lechatchila we say Baruch Hu B'Shiva, that we need 7 people who didn't hear. Usfara Gedolahi, so he says it's very logical. Dilma Lo Yitztarfu Tish'a Shamu Iman Yachid. So he says maybe that those 9 who already heard it don't combine with a single person, individual. Shelo Shama, they didn't hear. Shomar Hu Davar Shebikdusha, they should say something. Holiness, Harehu Mekadesh Tashem Be'asara, because he's sanctifying the name of God in front of 10 people. Adkanashano, Ukatav Rabbeinu Agadol Maria, says this rabbi, Shekach Nahagu Ha'olam La'asot. So that's the way the custom is now. About Yesh Li Zaher, but there is to be careful. He says, Shelo Yomar, Baruch Hu im lo haya sham afilu yachid. But don't say Baruch Hu even if there's no, if there's nobody there at all that didn't hear. There's no reason for that. שרוצה לברך על השמה, he wants to bless the Shema, עד כאן. כלומר, שאם לא כן, if not so, יהיו נראים חס ושלום, otherwise they're going to be looking like ששליח ציבור אומר להם ברוך הוא, שליח ציבור says ברוך הוא, ואין בהם גם אחד שיברך. There isn't one person who's going to answer. כתב האגור, says the אגור, בשם הסמ"ק, name of this rabbi, והרוקח, שאומר רבנו טובים שרבים נהגו, so Rabbeinu says that many good people, right, have a custom להתפלל אפילו בשביל יחיד, to pray even for individual. והיה מאבל וחתן. So he says the proof comes from, mourning and the groom, the חתן. וכך הוא במחזור ויטרי. That's what it says over there in this book. It's a sidur. And also this book, Katab Od Ha'agur. Also it says over there, the Ashkenaz, right, in Ashkenaz, which is Germany, Nagu Bechom Makom, custom was in every place, Lifros et Shema, they used to do Pores et Shema, Afilu al Echad Shelo Shema, even for somebody who didn't hear, Afilu Shema HaPores, even though the one who's doing it already heard it. But he's doing it for that guy who didn't hear it. Ad kan, that's the end of it. B'katav Rivash, b'tshuva, says the Rivash in the tshuva, shkach nireh shenatal lezeh aran. So it seems like the Ran also holds like this. B'perush ha'alachot, when he explains ha'alachot. Okay, very good. So, and then it goes on. Mash katav Rabbeinu, that which Rabbeinu wrote the Tur. V'achi itmar nami b'masechet sofrim. That's what it says also Masechet Sofrim. Pashutu says it's very simple, right? Very clear. The Aikara the Mil Takai is talking about the original point. What does that mean? That even for one person who didn't yet hear Kaddish and Baruch Hu, Porsin al Shema, they do pre-sound Shema. דאילו מה שכתב שאפילו אותו שכבר שמע יכול לחזור לפרוס, because it's whereas that which you already wrote that even the one who already heard Shema is able to go and do it again. Let him in Masechet Sofrim. It's not written in Masechet Sofrim. Deha lo kamar sham, because it doesn't say there sheomed ve'omer kaddish. He gets up and says kaddish u'baruch hu ela oto. Rather, only the one who shelo shama, the one who didn't hear anything yet. He's the one who's supposed to do that, not the person who already did it. Well, Rashi, according to Rashi, says lo tikshe. Don't ask me a question. Mehad Masechet Sofrim regarding this, what it says in Masechet Sofrim, to Katane, that it teaches there, Ve'amad echad shelo shama, that one person gets up who didn't hear this yet, the Shema, they didn't do it yet. So he says, there is to say, really, we can say that same also applies if you did hear it. But rather, it's just talking about the usual, predicament. That's usually the usual way. That's usually how it comes out. But that doesn't mean that it's coming to exclude other cases. So it says the one who didn't hear, he's the one who gets up and says, Kaddish Baruch Hu, Kaddish Baruch Hu. Katav Rosh, says the Rosh, Al Divrei Rashi, right, on the words of Rashi, Shatam Shafilu Oto Sheshama. So he says the reason that even the one who didn't hear, Yachol Lifros, he's able to do it as well. Bishvil Ayachad Shelo Shama, for somebody who didn't do it, who could Ashkechan B'Shaliach Tzibur, because that's what we find regarding a Shaliach Tzibur, right? That he's praying, for somebody else, even one person. Same thing here. Shafa Pi, Sheitpalel, that even though he already prayed, this guy, Choser Mitpalel, he's praying again, B'Kol Ram, in a loud voice. Even though now everybody knows how to pray. So he says, not really so much of a source, proof, from Amidah, the Shani Yudchet, because Amidah is different. Because Rabbi Yochanan says in Kaf Aleph Amud Aleph, that we wish, right, that a person would pray all day. Why not? Right? That's a beautiful thing. So what does that mean? Even though it's repeating the same thing over and over, all day, but still prayer is a good thing. And that's what he's trying to say. So he says, and also the Chazan arranges the tefillah, Pam Shniya, second time, does the Chazar Tashatz, because the community should answer Kedusha. V'gam mitzvah la'anot modim. So also it's a mitzvah to answer modim. V'gam Tosfot katvu. Also Tosfot said, the en zeraya, it's not really a proof so much. The Shani Yud Chet brachot, he also says, right, that the Amidah is different. Why? Because if he was praying in the beginning, Bekol Ram, in a loud voice, Shema lo ikavnu libam. Maybe they're not going to concentrate. The agia im shliach tzibur to come with the shliach tzibur together to arrive there, makom kedusha, in a place of kedusha. Modim al ken al kach. It says even though they little bit pushed out this source, the Tur still wrote it for halacha because they didn't really reject it altogether. Even if it was totally rejected, altogether, since they didn't really argue with him, right? So therefore, it's okay to write his words, the psak halacha for halacha. So he says, okay, practically speaking, what do we do? So he says, yesh lechazer achar shisha. So he says you should try to have at least 6 people, who didn't hear it, like the Rambam said. Shelo sham'u ve'im enam nimtzaim. But it says if you don't have 6 people, kedai hu Rashi lismoch alav b'shat adchak. So we can rely on Rashi, in time of need. And Rashi says you only need 1, right? So therefore, the rule is that it's better to have a majority, 6. But if you don't, we can even go with 1. Okay. So then he goes on. But here, it seems like even imoto shelo shama, even the person who didn't hear, who baki lered lifnei teva, he knows how to go and pray for the community, but he froze and to do this prisa. Nevertheless, somebody else who already heard it can fulfill his obligation. Because even though sometimes you have with a tzibur, somebody who didn't pray, and he knows how to pray himself. So nevertheless, the shliach tzibur goes, even though he already prayed by himself. But according to this is what the Torah wrote in this place. The person already who made kiddush for his family, and then he came to a different group of people. They don't know how to do kiddush. They can also do kiddush for them as well. But if they know how to do it, you shouldn't do it then because they should do it. There is to say the Achinami says here also the same thing. If there are some people who didn't hear yet, right, so one more time. If there is amongst those people who didn't hear, somebody who's expert, so then the one who heard it doesn't fulfill obligation. This is the proper thing to do. So he's saying it's proper, right? There's a person who didn't hear, knows how to pray, better to do it himself, should do it himself. It says over there in Manhig, once the shliach tzibur begins baruchu, and then Adam lebet knesset, and then people are coming to shul, shachrit in the morning. Lo yamar lehem shliach tzibur baruchu. The shliach tzibur shouldn't tell them baruchu. Ad achat will enter after the blessing, after the prayers. Velo ben geula letfilah, and not between the geula and tefillah. Debayinan techef legeulah tetfilah, because we need no interruption there, right? Juxtaposed. But it says when it comes to Arvit, that we hold Tfilat Arvit Reshut, that Tfilat Arvit is like really more, it's like optional. Ukvar anu mafsikin ben Geulah Tfilah. And anyway, we're stopping between Geulah and Tfilah to see the Kaddish anyway. Psukim, but Psukim, Yachol Amar Baruch Hu. So therefore, he says you can also say Baruch Hu. Ve'ud anu batre Baruch Hashem al Baruch al-Mizadeh. With the Mizadeh. But that's only if they answer you. ובמשרד קריאת שמע כתיקון חכמים בשתיים. So he says that, and the ones who are right, so the rabbis who made these blessings, they put two before כתיקון חכמים בשתיים לפניה ובשתיים לאחריה. To do it like that, the way the rabbis decreed, two before and two after. אבל אם לאחר ברוך הוא באים, where it says if they're coming after ברוך הוא, מיד ולא פתח החזן ביוצר אור, and the חזן didn't start yet יוצר אור, והם לא פרסו שמה, they didn't do פריסת שמה, יחזור ויאמר להם ברוך הוא, you can also say ברוך הוא to them as well, even though he already said it one time. ויפרסו על שמה, and they can do the Prisa of the Shema. Dehavale Sidur Shevach Lefanea, because it's like praises beforehand. But im karu et Shema. But if they read the Shema, lo yomar lahem Baruch Hu klal. Then you shouldn't tell them Baruch Hu at all. Okay. Then he goes on to say, B'tshuvat HaGeonim, it says in the Tshuva of the Geonim, uminhag provinsa, right? This place, the custom is there. Bnei Adam amit acharim lavo bet knesset. So he says the custom over there is that if people came late to the shul, and the people already prayed there, so one who didn't pray gets up, so they're fulfilling his obligation like a chazan. And even though they already fulfilled obligation, except these, but Tzarfat, but it says in France, right? Even if he already prayed, he can still do prisa. Al Shema, Lomar Kaddish Baruch Hu, say Kaddish Baruch Hu, Biftach B'Yotzer Or, and to start Yotzer Or. Kedusha and Kedusha, Ad Yotzer Me'orot, until there. B'Daleg V'Yomar Tfilat Shlachash. And then he skips over and says the Amidah, B'Kol Ram, right, in loud voice, Ba'avu Kedusha, because of the Kedusha, V'Ashlim Akol, then he finishes everything. That's the way it's done. In France, he says, Ad Kaneshono. Rabbeinu Gadol Baria, this big rabbi says, Katav Raiti Beferush. She says, I saw, right, explicitly written. I'm sorry, not explicitly, but in the commentary of Rashi, Shalu Bnei Adam, people ask, Kvar Itpalalu, Behem Chozrim Pa'am Acheret. They already prayed, and they're now going back again, returning, Levarech Ba'avu Shelo Shamu, to bless for those who didn't hear yet. Kaddish Baruch Hu, Kaddish Baruch Hu, Kedusha and Kedusha, Me'omed, standing. Umafsik, and he interrupts. Katav Hu shelo yitachen zeh. So he says it's not proper to do this. Can't be done like that. Shemiachar sheitchila alav ligmor etfilah. Why is that? Because once he already started, he says he should finish the whole blessing, the whole prayers. I'm sorry. Shelo nitkanu leafsik beberchotia. So he says why? Because they didn't make such an enactment like this to do an interruption in the blessings. Shekvar Sidum that earlier did. Alpia Mikraot Kulam. This is according to the all the verses. Megillah Yuzan Amud Ve'ani Mesupak says I have a doubt. I have a doubt regarding this. Is Beferush Rashi according to explanation of Rashi. Begam B'divrei Mechaber, also the Mechaber, which is the Rambam probably. Let's see. I don't know. Imhem Sobrim, if they hold Shiachol Leafsik, if they're holding that you're allowed to interrupt there, or no, or not. But it says, it seems like that in any case, it seems like since the people already prayed, and they're not going back to this, they're not returning, the only reason why they're doing this is that all of them should now answer the Kedusha and hear it. So they can interrupt, except the one who's praying, because regarding him, there is to say, or they should stop, or or not stop. But this is proper to be stringent. So it says there is also, one should look into the you can do this lechatchila even, right? Preferably. The person who wants to go out on the road, let's say he wants to go out, he has to go to travel, right? He's got a plane to catch, whatever. So he wants to come in and do Kaddish Kedusha before he goes out. Is he able to do this lechatchila, preferably? Kaddish u'baruchu and Berkat Yotzer, like this, all these things, utfila and then Amidah, and when he finishes it, Lemi shesover, kach, v'achar kach yachazor v'ikra, Kriyat Shema. And according to one who holds this way, and then he's going to go back and read Kriyat Shema, v'shar brachot, the rest of the blessings, v'lo nachush l'smichat Geulah l'tfila, and we're not going to be concerned about doing, juxtaposing tefillah to Geulah. Me'achar she'oseh lishmoa seder kedusha, because he says he's doing this in order to hear the kedusha. Sheuchal la'asoto, they should be able to do it. Ve'em mishum shemafsik bebrachot, as if you're going to tell me because he's making interruption in the blessings. Kvar amarnu shebrachot enam me'akvod. We already said the blessings don't really hold back, prevent one the other. At Kanashono. But in this book he says, Katav, he writes, Katuv, Kedivya Manhig, it's written like the Manhig, Ukadaihem, Ismoch Alehem, Bishatat. So he says, therefore, in a time of need, right, we can rely on this. Katuv, Kedivya Manhig. Okay, very good. So let's see all this in Shulchan Aruch, how he sums it up. Long story here. Okay. So it says in Shulchan Aruch, Im yesh bnei adam, if there are some people who sheitpalelu, they already prayed. Kol echad b'pnei atzmo, but everyone by themselves. So, for instance, right, for example, everybody prayed in his house. All of a sudden they decide now, oh yeah, let me go to shul. I'm a little late, but let me try to see what I can catch there. So they all go to shul. They all showed up there. They didn't hear Kaddish Kedusha because they're late. So one of them can get up, right? He says Kaddish and Baruch Hu in the first blessing. Yotzer or below Yotzer, not more than that. That's called Pores al Shema. Lashon Chaticha, like a slice. You slice it up. Why they call it a slice? Because they only do like half of it, right? The other part we don't do. So the truth is, in my lifetime, I never saw this before, right? Nobody does it today. Just you should know, right? It's not the custom today to do it like this. We have a different way of doing it. So let's see what the Ramah says here, right? What does the Ramah say? All right, as we said, right, that now the custom is not to do Yotzer Or. We don't do that. Right, so that's what we do, exactly what the Ramah says. Right, we do Kaddish and Baruch Hu. That's enough. So then he goes on. Some say we also do this in Arvit, this trick that we just mentioned. Like in the morning. So he says, but the custom is not to do this because, right, there isn't there Kaddish and before Baruch Hu, Shel Arvit, right, in Arvit. So the truth is that the Sfarim, they do Kaddish before. But the Ashkenazim, they don't do. That's why he's saying they don't do. Okay, whatever. Anyway, right? So as we said, right, that this is the custom nowadays, that a person who came late, he can just do Kaddish and Baruch Hu in order to fulfill the mitzvah of doing these things, and they answer after him. Sometimes they don't even do Kaddish, they just say Baruch Hu. That's good also, I've seen that too. And that's valid. Even though there's a machloket about this, there's issues about this. We'll get into it, Bezat Hashem. So anyway, right, it says that, then says the Shulchan Aruch, once they finish Yotzer Or, Omer Avot Gvura, then he says Avot and Gvurat, which is the first two blessings of the Midah, Kedusha and Kedusha, and then Vat Kadosh, third blessing, Vezenikra Over Lifnei Teva. That's called going in front of the Teva, being the Chazan, whatever. Then Osin Dvarim Elu Bepachot Miyudas Mishum. We don't do these things with less than 10 people. Mishum Dehabe Dvarim Mepshim Kedusha, because these are like holiness, holy things. Holiness, Kedusha requires 10 people, minyan. So he says you should try to look for 6 people who didn't hear these things, right? And then you can do it, no problem. Danielov asara, that's like the majority of the minyan. But if you don't have 6 people, then so then we even do it for one, right? As we said in Rashi, that Rashi holds that way, that even for one you can do it. So it says even the one who heard already can do the prisa al Shema for the other people that didn't hear, and then to do the Amidah as we mentioned, for the one who didn't hear. He says, nevertheless, but if the one who didn't hear is able to do it himself, he knows how to do it. Al Shema, then it's better that he should do it, because since he didn't do it yet, the other ones already did it. So if they do it again, like there's a concern maybe that they're not doing the proper thing. They're repeating it again. Yeah, so then he goes into Ramah. So says the Ramah like this: a person who becomes a Chazan, he said the first 3 blessings, right? In the Amidah, he should continue silently the whole thing. He starts out saying it out loud, 3 blessings, and then he continues right and finishes everything. Even though he already prayed. But he says the others are able to do what? To stop there afterwards. It says all the more so if the person didn't pray yet, the one came late, they didn't pray yet. Then he should finish the blessing of the Amidah, even though he's going to need to read Kriyat Shema afterwards, since he missed it now. And he's not going to do juxtaposing Geulat Tefillah. So it's problematic, this whole thing. So he says you're not allowed to stop with these kinds of things, to interrupt. When it comes to when you're standing between Geulah and Tefillah, right? That's too crucial, that area, that place. Also Kriyat Shema. So he says, therefore, it's forbidden for the Shliach Tzibur to stop, to interrupt between Kriyat Shema and Tefillah, or Kriyat Shema B'chotea, or Kriyat Shema and blessings, in order to be porous on Shema. For the ones who already came to Shul late. Because people already prayed, Kaddish and Baruch Hu, they already did that. So he started already with Yotzer Or, but it says when it comes to Arvit, which is optional, so then he can stop and fulfill the obligation of others. Because over there, stopping is not so severe like in the morning. He says, nevertheless, Ish Acher Yachol Lifros Al Shema, right? Another person can do it, or להתפלל, or to pray בכל התפילה. You can do the whole blessing, the whole prayers. אפילו באותו בית כנסת, even in the same shul, שכבר התפללו, they already prayed there, להוציא אחרים מידי חובה, the full obligation of others, רק שלא יעמוד החזן השני, but the second חזן shouldn't stand, מקום שעמד הראשון, where the first חזן stood. וזהו נראה גנאי לראשונים, דווקא כאילו לא יצאו בראשונה ידי חובה. Because it makes it look like, oh, the first ones didn't do it properly, weren't doing it properly. ונראה לי דווקא כשעדיין ראשונים בית כנסת. So it seems to me, it says that we're talking about where the first ones are still in the shul. אלא שהשלימו סדרם, but they already finished. But if they already התפללו, they already prayed, להוציא אחרים מחובה. They already prayed to fulfill the obligation of others. רק שלא יעמוד החזן. I'm sorry, 1 second, I skipped something here. Yeah. Right. אבל אם, ונראה לי דווקא שעדיין הראשונים בבית כנסת, we're talking about a case where they're still in the shul, the first minyan. אלא שהשלימו סדרם, but they already finished their prayers. אבל אם יצאו הראשונים, but if the first minyan already left, they left the shul, יוכל לעמוד החזן up במקום שעמד הראשון. So then the chazan can stand even in the place where the first guy stood, because nobody cares anymore. They're all gone. So you're not insulting them by doing it there. Okay, so basically, it's a long story here with the Ramaz bringing all this stuff. But honestly, as we said, that nobody does this anymore today. So the custom today is, what do we do really? If a person comes in the morning, right, and he missed the Baruch Hu, the Kedusha, the Kaddish. So what he does is like this. He says Kaddish, he says Baruch Hu with the community. He needs 10 people, right? And then he does the Kriyat Shema, everything by himself quietly. And then when he gets to the Amidah, he does the Kedusha out loud so everybody can answer. This is the way we do it today. And that's great, fantastic, right? That's a great thing to do. And same thing, for Mincha as well. The person didn't hear the Kedusha in Mincha, he can come in and say the Kaddish and do the Kedusha, all these things, no problem. You can do all these things if the people are still there. At night also, right? Same thing. You can say Kaddish, you can say Baruch Hu, right? And then do the Amidah, and that's all we need. We don't need anything more. This is the custom that we do today. So therefore, this has already gone into this halakha has gone into the recycle bin, as we said, right? Not really used anymore. And there are reasons for it why we don't do it today. Practically it doesn't work out for us so well, this kind of stuff. So that's the story. The truth is, probably the biggest reason why we don't do it is because we're not really so concerned about saying Kedusha, as an individual in the Kriyat Shema. We're lenient about this today, so therefore there's really not such a big reason to say Yotzer or what's the point of doing that and then doing the Amidah right away. But the thing is, that if you do it our way, the problem is sometimes by the time you get to the Amidah, already everybody has left, of the shul, so then you won't be able to do Kedusha. But we're not so crazy about that today, we're not so crazy. If they left, they left. What can you do, right? You do the best you can. And Shalom Yisrael. Okay, very good. So it's a little bit of a foreign thing going on here today, but I hope you understood the best you can.
Just come early and you will avoid all of this. Right?
Well, yeah, that's a good piece of advice. Unfortunately, the Yetzer Hara, makes people come late sometimes, and also there's other things, sometimes, I'll be honest with you. Sometimes a person needs to use the bathroom, he comes late because you had to use the bathroom, or he had to, I don't know, he was doing some kind of mitzvah, right? Let's say he was honoring his parents, So he was doing some kind of a mitzvah. He was absolved. So he's absolved from the other mitzvah. So once he finished, he came in late. So the truth is, that I'm telling you right now, until Mashiach comes, people will keep coming late to shul. It's not gonna stop. You know what I mean? It just happens because that's the way life is. So therefore, right, we need solutions for this. But as we said, right, the solution for us is like the way I described it, more or less. That's pretty much what we do. Okay, very good. Chazak Baruch. Nice to see you today. See you tomorrow, B'ezrat Hashem. Be blessed with wealth, health, happiness. Be holy and happy. And see you tomorrow. Chazak Baruch.
Thank you so much.
All the best.